Crystal light from the golden gilded chandeliers cascades down across the vast ballroom. Melodious music plays, glasses of wine clink melodiously, mingling with laughter rich in power. This is the annual New York Charity Gala, where shimmering evening gowns share space with elegant tuxedos, where the most powerful faces from finance, politics, and entertainment gather, not only to donate, but also to flaunt their wealth and status. In the kitchen behind the scenes, the heart of one man pounds furiously. Marcus Johnson, a 32-year-old African-American chef, stands upright, takes a deep breath. He has spent weeks preparing for this night. This is not an ordinary dinner. It is a golden opportunity to prove to the world that talent knows no color. Marcus dons his pristine white chef's coat. His calloused hands tremble as he places the final details onto the plate. This is the signature dish of which he is most proud, a fusion of his mother's traditional recipe with modern culinary techniques. He calls it soul on a plate. The MC's voice echoes through the ballroom, introducing the main course, prepared by one of the most promising chefs of the new generation. The kitchen doors swing open. Marcus steps out, holding a gleaming silver tray. His eyes briefly flick toward the VIP table in the center of the room. Seated there is Mr. Charles Whitmore, a real estate billionaire, notorious for his arrogance and disdain toward anyone he deems beneath his caliber. A man whose mere raised eyebrow can make people shrink in his presence. Marcus approaches. He bows his head slightly and places the dish before Charles, then politely introduces, "Sir, this is the dish I have prepared especially for tonight. I hope you will fully experience its flavors." But instead of lifting a fork, Charles raises an eyebrow and smirks coldly. He shakes his head and pushes the plate away. "I do not eat food made by people like you." The atmosphere in the ballroom freezes. Laughter abruptly subsides. Forks pause midair. Some faces express shock. Whispers ripple through the room. Marcus stands there, his heart clenched. That brief sentence lands heavier than 1,000 stones. He had heard slurs like that before, but never under the gaze of hundreds of powerful people. Marcus's eyes glisten with tears. He suppresses them, lifts his head, trying to keep his voice steady. But deep inside, a storm of humiliation, fury, and pain roars. The ballroom falls silent, so silent you can hear Marcus's rapid breathing. Then whispers begin to spread. Did he actually just say that? Unbelievable. This is a charity gala. And yet, the MC on stage looks bewildered. Some guests glance at each other. Some shake their heads. Others look down, as though not wanting to be involved. But everyone knows they have just witnessed a raw insult. In that moment, Marcus could have left. He could have walked away and let silence bury his voice. But instead of turning away, he stands his ground. His hands clench, then release. He takes a deep breath, scans the room full of opulence, and silently thinks, if not today, then when? If not here, then where? And in that moment, the gala, a night that seemed like a glamorous party, begins to transform into a story no one expected. Marcus Johnson was born on the south side of Chicago, in a poor neighborhood where red brick walls were mottled and windows patched with cardboard. He grew up surrounded by the scent of old frying oil from the corner diner, the constant wail of police sirens, and his mother's weary conversations after long days of cleaning. His mother, Lorraine, was a thin but resilient woman with rough, sturdy hands. Every day she woke at 4 in the morning, took 2 buses to the mansions of wealthy families, cooked, cleaned, and returned home after dark. She never complained. She just often smiled, rolled up her sleeves, and told her son, "Marcus, we may be poor in money, but never poor in dreams." Marcus's father, David, had once worked in construction. He was strong and diligent, yet repeatedly denied jobs simply because of the color of his skin. Marcus overheard him once, returning home after a failed interview, slamming his hard hat onto the table and choking out, "They do not see my hands, they only see this color." It was the first time, at the age of 8, that Marcus realized the world was not always fair. But amid the grim walls, there was a small bright corner, the kitchen. Every evening, his mother cooked simple meals for Marcus and his sister. It might be nothing more than a cheap pot of stew, a few slices of stale bread, or fried chicken bought on sale. Yet to Marcus, Those were feasts, the smell of fried onions, the sizzle of oil, and the way his mother seasoned just enough. The taste of home became sweet memories. Marcus began standing beside his mother, curiously watching. The shy 10-year-old stirred the pot with a spoon and jumped in delight when his mother praised, "My son has the hands of a chef." Those small moments planted the seeds of a big dream. As a teenager, while friends were absorbed in basketball or music, Marcus spent hours reading old cookbooks bought at flea markets. He experimented in his tiny kitchen, sometimes burning pots, prompting his mother to shake her head, half scolding, half laughing. Then came a turning point. Marcus received a partial scholarship to a prestigious culinary school in New York. It was a dream no one in his impoverished neighborhood dared to imagine. On the day he left, his mother gripped his hand, slipped an old handkerchief into his pocket, and whispered, "Never forget your roots, Marcus. Let them taste your love in every dish." But his path in New York was not paved with roses. In the early days at culinary school, Marcus faced prejudice. Some instructors doubted his ability. Classmates whispered behind his back, "He is just a kid from the slums. How can he understand haute cuisine?" During internships in top restaurants, Marcus was rejected before he even entered the kitchen, not because of skill, but because they did not want customers to be upset seeing a black chef in the open kitchen. Once, a wealthy patron saw him in the kitchen and summoned the manager. "I paid to be served by chefs worthy of the role, not." His gaze scanned Marcus from head to toe, paused on his skin color, then left the sentence unfinished. Each time, Marcus returned to his cramped room, unfolded his mother's old handkerchief, took a deep breath, and told himself, "I will not give up. If I step back, they win." Years later, he began gaining recognition through small pop-ups and exclusive tasting menus for food lovers. People whispered that Marcus Johnson did not just cook, he breathed soul into every dish. Yet, the elite still had not truly accepted him. Then the biggest opportunity arrived. The Gala organizers invited Marcus to be the head chef for the dinner serving the most powerful figures in America. It was a dream, but also enormous pressure. He knew that one small mistake would make him a laughingstock. For weeks, he worked sleeplessly, testing recipes over and over, selecting ingredients carefully, rehearsing every presentation detail. He poured into it everything: the past, his pain, his mother's love, and his belief that a dish could break down every barrier. But on gala night, before that dish could touch the tongue of the most powerful man in the room, he was rejected, not because of taste, not because of quality, but because of color. This was not merely an insult to Marcus, it was a knife gouged deep into the memories of his childhood. The memories of his father, his mother, and of every time people of color had to bow their heads in silence. Standing in that opulent room, Marcus understood that this was no longer just his story. It was a question for everyone. Can talent speak more powerfully than prejudice? After that heavy moment of silence, every eye turned toward Marcus. He could have walked away, hidden back in the kitchen, let the shame swallow him whole. But instead, Marcus simply bowed his head slightly and walked back toward the kitchen with a calm stride, as if nothing had happened. Inside, the sous chefs looked at him with concern. One whispered, "Marcus, just let it go. You do not have to put up with this." But Marcus only offered a faint smile, his eyes glowing with an unusual determination. He took a deep breath, rolled up his sleeves, and said, "If they do not want to hear me, then let the food speak for me." And he began to cook. No longer reserved, Marcus poured his entire soul into every movement. Flames leapt gloriously as he seared the meat. A rich aroma spread as he sprinkled spices brought from the small market where he grew up. He fused humble ingredients his mother used with the intricate techniques he had learned at culinary school. A hearty sauce made from slow-simmered bones, seasoned with a touch of southern-style chili heat, vegetables delicately carved and plated in the fine dining style, and on top, a crisp slice of cornbread, the symbol of family meals in hardship. Every motion from Marcus was like a piece of music. He was no longer cooking just to serve. He was telling a story about his mother, his father, and an entire community once left in the shadows. In the ballroom, guests began to grow curious. The scent from the kitchen gradually drifted out, overtaking the fragrance of expensive wine and luxury perfume. A few people turned to each other and whispered, "What is that delicious smell? It seems to be coming from the black chef's kitchen." Then a young guest, unable to resist, called over a server, "Bring me a plate, I want to try it." The server hesitated, glancing toward Marcus. He nodded, and so, the first plate was brought out. After just one bite, the guest froze. He set down his fork, closed his eyes, letting the flavors meld on his tongue. It felt both familiar and new, like a home-cooked meal turned into a piece of art. He jumped up, clapping, "Extraordinary! I have never tasted anything like this." The entire ballroom buzzed with excitement. Hands shot up, calling servers. A second plate, then a third. Dozens followed. Each person who'd tasted it reacted the same way, widened eyes. Bright smiles, nods of approval. A wealthy businesswoman whispered, visibly moved, "This dish, it is so real. It touched my heart." Meanwhile, Marcus remained silent in the kitchen. He did not return to the stage, did not defend himself. He just kept cooking, letting each dish be his response. The crowd began to shift. The initial murmurs turned into waves of admiration. A few guests turned openly toward Charles Whitmore's table, staring at him with questioning eyes. But Charles remained still, his face stone cold, eyes slightly narrowed. He was now the only person in the room who had not tasted the food. And his earlier rejection now left him isolated amid the crowd. No one spoke aloud, but everyone understood. This was no longer about a meal. It was about pride, recognition, and the power of talent in the face of prejudice. The sound in the ballroom began to shift. From those early doubtful whispers came scattered applause, then a rolling wave of clapping that filled the room. Dozens of powerful guests stood up, unable to contain their excitement after tasting Marcus's food. Some even marched straight to the kitchen, reaching out to shake his hand, eyes shining. "Marcus, this is not just a meal, it is an experience." Among them was someone the entire ballroom recognized, Eleanor Davis, a renowned food critic who had served as a Michelin judge multiple times. She stepped into the center of the room, her voice ringing loud and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have spent more than 30 years traveling the world, tasting thousands of dishes. And today, right here, I can say with certainty, this dish is Michelin level." The entire ballroom erupted in cheers. Camera flashes lit up the space. Reporters scrambled to capture every moment. No one wanted to miss this scene. A black chef, once publicly rejected, now being celebrated by the very elite. Marcus stood still. He did not need to say a word. The applause said it all. But while excitement surged, the VIP table remained unnaturally quiet. Charles Whitmore sat frozen, his face tight. He neither clapped nor smiled. His cold eyes scanned the room, searching for an ally, finding none. Even those who once bowed to his power now looked at him differently. A businessman standing near the VIP table murmured just loud enough for others to hear, "Perhaps the only person who does not belong here is Mr. Whitmore." That sentence spread fast. More heads nodded, more sharp stares aimed toward the arrogant billionaire. No one whispered behind Marcus's back anymore. Now, the spotlight of judgment fell on Charles Whitmore. Cameras turned toward him non-stop. A reporter whispered to a colleague, "What will tomorrow's headline be? Billionaire rejects black chef's dish and faces backlash," or "One plate shakes the seat of power." The news began to spread that very night. Social media exploded with clips filmed by guests. Marcus walking out with the rejected dish, followed by the entire ballroom rising in applause. The hashtag let the food speak spread like wildfire. In the middle of the frenzy, Marcus stood silently, hand gripping the old handkerchief in his pocket. He knew this moment was not just a personal victory, but one for his father, for his mother, and for all those who had lived under the shadow of prejudice. Meanwhile, Charles remained motionless, but the quieter he became, the more exposed he was. His silence no longer symbolized power. It was embarrassment. The ballroom was now crystal clear. No one doubted Marcus anymore. The only person facing questions was Charles Whitmore. Applause continued to roar, sweeping like a wave across the grand ballroom. People stood up, some cheering, some filming with their phones, others with teary eyes. The aroma from Marcus's kitchen seemed to have dissolved every boundary of wealth, of power, of skin color. But at the VIP table, silence remained. Charles Whitmore sat still, his silver fork neatly placed beside the untouched plate. His expression remained cold, but his eyes flickered, shaken under the weight of hundreds of stares now aimed directly at him. An older guest, a politician who once held deep respect for Charles, now stepped forward, clear and resolute. "Mr. Whitmore, the entire room has tasted it. Only you remain. We are waiting." That statement pierced directly through Charles's pride. He slowly lifted his head and scanned the room. No one looked away, not a single gaze turned aside. The entire hall was holding him accountable. Finally, Charles picked up his fork. He pierced a small bite, raised it to his lips, and then the cold expression on his face changed. At first, it was surprise, his brows furrowed in disbelief. Then his eyes softened, his breath caught in his throat. For a brief moment, he looked unsettled, as if that flavor had pierced through the shell of arrogance and struck something deep within. The crowd watched every tiny movement on his face, and when he was forced to set the fork down, everyone knew, he could not deny it. A thunderous round of applause exploded, louder than ever before. Some even stood on their chairs, whistling, shouting Marcus's name. The whole room erupted like a silent declaration. Talent has no color. Marcus now stepped out from the kitchen. He was not arrogant, not mocking, and did not look at Charles with defiance. He simply held his head high, standing tall in the middle of the ballroom, his eyes glistening as if they held the stories of countless generations. Without a word of protest, he had already won, because justice does not always come from arguments. It comes from the sound of 100 hands clapping in recognition. In that moment, the man once seated atop power seemed so small, and the young black man once dismissed, now stood highest in the hearts of all. The gala was expected to end with soft music and massive donations. But no one imagined the thing people would remember most would not be the money. It would be the image of a silent chef who let his talent speak and made a billionaire bow before the truth. The next morning, every major newspaper broke the news. The front page of the New York Times read in bold, "A dish that shattered prejudice. Billionaire publicly rejected after dismissing black chef." Social media exploded with millions of shares. Clips of Marcus standing amid thunderous applause spread everywhere. The hashtag let the food speak became a global trend overnight. Marcus was no longer the unknown boy from a poor neighborhood in Chicago. He was invited to television shows, offered partnerships with prestigious restaurants, but more importantly, his story ignited belief in countless young people of color who dared to dream. At culinary schools, students who once hesitated at being the only one with a different skin tone now held their heads high, whispering to themselves, "If Marcus could do it, then so can I." A movement began, bearing the motto, "Let the food speak, not the skin color." It was more than a slogan, it was a declaration. Talent, passion, and character are what define a person. Marcus also established a scholarship fund named after his mother, Lorraine's Table. The fund supports young black aspiring chefs who lack the resources to pursue their dreams. In an interview, he said, "My mother once cooked simple meals filled with love. I want every young person from a background like mine to be given the chance to turn that love into a career, into a voice." The image of his slender mother in that tiny kitchen had now become the inspiration for a new generation. And so, Marcus's story reached far beyond the culinary world. It became proof that justice does not only come from courts or from protests in the streets. Justice can come from a single plate of food, from a truth that resonates in people's hearts, and from a moment when a crowd stands together and says, "We recognize this." A message for you, the one listening to this story. Never let prejudice dim your light. Never let your skin, your background, or someone else's judgment define who you are. If Marcus could stand tall and turn shame into triumph, then you too can turn hardship into strength. Remember this, talent and character matter more than skin color. If you believe in that, if you want a fairer world, share this story, because sometimes one small story can become the flame that lights a million hearts.